Hi, Marshall here, and I got a fun convo here with you guys today. It's about a connection that I made in the sports world and I guess even the business world, social world, uh, the self development world, your connection with yourself. And this is a understanding of how you fit in the system or how you would like to fit in the system. Um, And this metaphor kind of got sparked from when I was younger, playing on the soccer team. And we had a formation on the soccer team that was okay. And now that I'm much older, I have a lot of improvements that I would have liked to have made if I had known at the time. But most importantly, I think the biggest improvement in coaching and something that maybe I would like to share with other coaches is that uh, it's not even entirely about the formation. The formation definitely helps, but is the coaching of the players in the formation and what type of role they're going to have, um, and that's a metaphor into society and or whatever business you may partake in, whatever direction you go in. Um, Understanding the role that you would even like and or the best fitting role for you. Obviously, you want to have success. So the way I looked at it is there was a lot of positions that weren't coached correctly, somewhat um, hindering of the players even and what they were best at. There were certain players that were better defensively um, and they weren't able to really push the offense as well and should have played a predominantly defensive role. But but it is the coaching in that position, and it's such a strength to how you see the success of coaches in professional sports to be able to bring out the best in the player um, in that specific role. And even and what I noticed also is I know it sounds goofy, but playing the FIFA video game, there is specific roles you can give players, and honestly, there's certain players that work better in certain roles, and almost changes who you actually put on the field, but by who operates in the best role, not even exactly who's the best player. So, and even altering the formation you would actually be desired to be able to put the best people on the field to have the best team. And now I look back at the soccer team we had, and there was certain adjustments that I would have liked to have made. Um, I would there was a or honestly the biggest problem on our team I think was how the center field was constructed, and that was where I played, and I tried to play somewhat of a box to box mid that would actually pushed a lot of the attacks, but also had to drop back and play center mid. And we had a stopper behind that which you could call that a CDM, a center defensive mid. And what I would have said, what I think we should have done is I should have played a more primary role as a center attacking mid, a cam, and then the other center mid should have been a CDM and then another CDM. So we should have had two CDMs, and it kind of creates a triangle shape. As you can see on the screen, I'm trying to make a triangle for you guys. So you have the CDM on each side, and so that way those CDMs could play off of each other better than how we had it constructed, where the CDM will be here, where my left hand is, and then we had the center mid here, and then I was operating a cam, and so this is had like a dysfunctional triangle here that didn't cover space as well defensively, but sometimes it worked offensively. It just kind of lacked the structure, and we weren't coached in the best way to succeed in that. Um, you know, it was a combination of the system, the formation, and a combination of coaching in that system. Um, And so there was obviously it's high school level. There's a lot of different things, but even as you went into college, I noticed that we had a pretty basic formation, and um, there was a lack of, I think, creativity involved to see how we could improve with the players that we had, with the strengths that we had, and that would be one thing that I would like to do for myself and for other people is help them operate out of their best skill set to help them get forward in life. So you have to really understand what your skill set is. Um, and how you could anchor off that skill set and fit in this system of society or the system of the business that you're working in. Uh, even be able to go beyond the role. You know, there was captains on our team, and at a certain point in the season, there was a lot of people looking for me to find solutions for what we should do as a team. Even in the playoff game, last game of the season, coaches were actually looking for me as like a way to lead the team to victory. Unfortunately, we weren't able to win that game, and even though my role wasn't a captain, I ended up actually, you know, fulfilling that role in a way in the end of the season, even though that we lost. And my message in the locker room at halftime was that we needed to trust in each other and the runs that we were making. Trust that we were going to get the ball and be able to, um, you know, I was like in an effort to keep the team together as we were kind of dysfunctionally in a state of not quite a state of belief, I think, in ourselves, because there was some toxicity. There's some things that were brought into that locker room that I don't believe they should have been. But that sort of mindset, that sort of doubt that was in a couple people's heads, I think, kind of transferred through the team. And in an effort, I tried to unite us to trust in, that we could still come away with that victory that day. Unfortunately, we weren't able to do that. I want to keep thinking about this, logically before I get into like a kind of a spiritual understanding of what can happen if you truly trust in yourself and trust in your role. Maybe we cover that enough where I could say this and we'll work backwards. But so I had a really great game a few games before that where I was so nervous before the game, so nervous. I was laying in bed. I was just kind of resting my body, just like after a day at school, and I'm like, well, I'm just gonna lay here thinking about the game, and I think I was processing it a lot. I ended up having a great game. There was nerves there. There was probably a bit of doubt. We had to win the game to win the section, and I was able to score in that game to help give us an edge towards winning the game. The best goal I've ever scored, really, and the best goal that a lot of people had seen at that point in their life. But besides that, it was a relief for me. I was able to find this release and comfort in myself and my ability and my role on the team. So that game, the playoff game, the really interesting thing was that I was so comfortable at this. There were no nerves at the start of that game. It was a comfort of my identity and my role in that team that I was operating out of a flow state in a way, and a comfort in the chaos. And that's what I saw. I saw some people that weren't operating well in that chaos. A lot of people weren't ready to move forward, and that was the one thing I don't know if I talked about this in the halftime, but it was like there was a gap in our formation because we weren't trusting enough to move forward and you basically unite the troops forward to be able to attack, and that lack of trust meant lack of numbers going forward, and inevitably there were a lot of options at times. There weren't a lot of options for me, and I told you guys about earlier about how if we had two CDMs side by side instead of that formation, the formation was kind of mitigating our ability to bring troops up the field. So um, that was honestly the biggest, I think, issue with our success that night was this gap in the center of the field. Um, and I was getting exhausted trying to also basically playing multiple positions. Um, and on top of that, you had doubt. And you had people that really weren't operating from an area of trust in themselves, trust in what their role was. And honestly, if you can coach a player through understanding their role and understanding what they're good at doing versus the counter, which is like oftentimes that destructive criticism of what a player is not able to do. So um, there was two sides of the coin there, and there was some doubt, and there was some leadership issues. But um, if you have someone that's leading that also isn't trusting in themselves or trusting in the people around them, they're kind of just they honestly it was a tough thing to say, but there was some narcissism there to like they weren't feeling like they were able to be used in their role or something like that. Um, and so that was sort of they were like, they didn't want to. Honestly, there was certain players that didn't want to partake in the offensive runs that they needed to make. And then even whenever people were making the runs, they weren't willing. They didn't want to go forward and trust to get that person the ball. Um, and so it was it ended up really kind of, I would say that was our downfall. We could have lost the game anyway. And honestly, a lot of players played really hard, and a lot of people operated out of confidence, um, but that ability to harness that trust in yourself amongst the chaos, um, is is so important. And I was even affected by some of the doubt that other players had for me and for the team and what we were doing. There wasn't no established of a solution. There wasn't no established of coaching the roles better at that time. It was the end of the season. It was like, what we got is what we got, and we weren't able to to play our best in the system, and we didn't alter the system early enough to really build off of that. And so this is just like a symbolic way of like thinking about yourself, and how you're fitting into whatever system, and maybe you're not even in the right system, you know. Maybe you're just kind of accepting whatever position it is, and it's not going to really even reflect in your identity in the system. What your best, and so let's use this again as a comparison. My best skill set was as a center attacking mid, because I could come back and play defensively in the middle of the field, but I shouldn't have gone back so far all the times. It should have been, and if we needed to, we could have put somebody else that came, and I could have played the CDM also, and we could have operated out that system. But we didn't do that, and the best identity for me was leading an attack, getting the ball to like for our, and this is what happened anyways. Is like either the ball was going to come to me, or other center mid wasn't going to push the attack. I was going to be the one that had to push the attack, and a lot of times I would do more than I needed to do. And so from an area playing center mid, I'm also trying to get past guys covering me, where I could have had more space in the center if I was up the field further, collecting the ball there, distributing it to outside mids, distributing it to strikers. I could have really just stuck to the role that I was doing the best at. And honestly, when I went into college, there wasn't really an established role like that either as a cam, and I look at it's such an amazing position to have on the team. And as I was playing this FIFA game, I really, if I don't have a cam on the field, it is like a struggle because it's it's like the ultimate distributor. You get that person in like the upper half of the field who can do a lot of things. He can pass it back to a midfielder. He can pass it to a striker. He doesn't have to push the tempo first before he passes it. Um, it's such an important position that it wasn't really understood at the time. Like I was playing that role, but I didn't even really understand it. So that is the coaching of what is best. I was good at defending, but that was my strength. My strength was my offensive ability, but I did both, and it was very taxing on me. Even though you know, I did have a lot of endurance. So now, now I have a completely different role I'm working towards, where I'm thinking about my certain strengths, how I could operate myself. I'm a handicapped person. I'm in a wheelchair right now, and so I'm operating a completely different field now. Um, and so there's different ways that I'm looking to do things that are even are really genuine to my identity. And this is like and recently this establishment for trying to find my freedom to be my best. And it's like honestly kind of like operating at a flow state, free associative, kind of right in front of you today. I got no paper in front of me, and I'm creating this, this video for you. Now, the freedom, enhancing somebody's freedom to be able to fulfill themselves, and this is in the self-development part. This is what I want to do, and even in other areas, I'd like to push this type of mindset, and I'd like to also maintain it inside myself. So there's a few different things I do in my spare time beyond trying to make money in the markets, because I'm interested in finance. Uh, those being, I like to write comedy jokes. I like to do that. I think that's a way to enhance my ability, and one of my strengths inside me is to pursue a state of mind that is self-amused, jocular, and the giver of laughter. And so that's kind of my, that's a way that the best ways that I can operate out of my most enjoyment, and my enjoyment to provide for others. Others that may not be able to see that freedom that they can have because they operate very primarily out of their logical mind. So I want to be able to bring people into that area of freedom. I want to get them laughing. I want them to enjoy that time and understand that, hey, if you like this enough, you could operate out of this zone too. Um, Another thing would be, I do freestyle raps. That's another way that I like to operate out of a flow state, similar to whenever I was on the soccer field, where I was kind of jumping in to these plays offensively, and I had guys running at me, trying to stop me, and I had all these different, things going. They weren't like, I wasn't the most logical player. You'd see me out there. I was doing sometimes ridiculous things that there was nobody on the field, our side of the field or the other side of the field, were really able to do in a spur of the second, because I was operating out of the mind at times. And so, that was the place that I loved to be. I loved that freedom. Oftentimes it brought us, it was able to help our team. Sometimes that was counterintuitive. That's why I may be able to operate better out of the cam position, because I was willing to do things at the center mid position that maybe were a little bit edgy. But that freedom, I want to bring that into my lifestyle, and the way that I do that is through freestyle rapping also. Whether it's improv jokes, I'd like to be better at improv jokes, but I also like to do these freestyle raps that kind of destroy the ego in a way. And I'm practicing a way um, that I'm practicing something new. This is over the last 6 months. I've been doing freestyle raps. It's new. It actually, if your ego is fragile, you probably won't ever even try to do it. You won't ever think, oh, I could turn on a beat and I could just start freestyle rapping off the top of my head, because you don't really, you don't have the freedom. And so the ego is kind of taking control. And that's part of what this conversation is about today, is being able to fulfill a free role at your best ability, so that you can operate with a healthy mind and a healthy soul, um, to be self-expressive, to not be inhibited, and understand what the best role for you is in society. And I don't have the answer for you. It's really up to you to figure out what works best for you. Um, and I'm still on that journey too, because I don't really, I don't always love to just sit there and look at charts to, see if I can make money on a daily basis. It's not very um, flow statey. It's not, it's very up and down. You're right. It's, it's a bit of a passion of mine, but it's not exactly something that I want to put forth a lot of my time into, because I want to enhance this ability to be a free associative, improv, that side of me, and then also collaborate with this ability to have structure in the system and create a system for myself that works. Um, so it's this is about being the leader for yourself, so that you can establish your skill set and see how you can operate in a healthy manner to really, do what you can to have that balanced lifestyle where you're not sacrificing your identity, that those core beliefs that you have. Like, imagine I took on a position working for somebody, and instead I felt like I was not giving people the freedom to operate and fulfill their role. Um, I or I was, you know, in a way I was selling. Maybe I was a manager and I was selling people on this idea that they could have success in the system, when I know that I doubt that idea. You're operating at a way that you feel like you're phony, or you feel like you're not true to yourself and what you actually believe, and you're kind of operating out of like a facade of uh, of of the truthfulness of yourself. So that's where people get very lost, and that identity is very crucial, because if you go down that pattern for the longest time and you don't think about this stuff, you don't think about where you're going to be, or how you want to live your life as a reflection of your core beliefs, then you could end up in a really bad situation where all of a sudden you're having some sort of identity crisis, and you don't know where to go, and you don't understand what the solution is. And that's why you got to check out my Mentoring 365 playlist here. So there's all sorts of different things to enhance your ability to just get out there and find the freedom in the chaos, and be able to provide that for other people. This is something that be able to find it for yourself first, and that's what I'm trying to do. Is I want to find that freedom in the chaos. I want to go up on that stage and tell my jokes, and I want to be able to hold that mindset and frame that I love what I'm doing, because I'm going to get people to maybe, I'm not trying to get something out of them, but I want them to see the possibilities that are in front of them. Even a guy in a wheelchair can see the possibilities and the opportunities. I don't want to be blind to those, and I want to go out there and do that, not for the money, but for the fulfillment of the identity. To be true to yourself, because that is one thing you can't lie to. You can't lie to yourself, and you might have an ego, but guess what? If you believe in the guy upstairs, or you believe in an entity of the universe that sees through your flaws and everything, and understands everything that you're going through, say what's on your mind. You know, I hope that it's in the direction of helping other people operate out of freedom. That is the one role I don't want to counteract. And so say what's on your mind. Hopefully it's not going to restrict on other people's freedom. That would be the one thing I would say. Don't do that. If you're gonna, don't try to suppress another group of people if that's what you're talking about. And that doesn't really make even any sense in the comedy world. You know, you can crack jokes about a group of people, but you're not trying to suppress them. And this conversation is not to intend to do harm to other people with speaking your mind. So there's a way to operate out of this, and there's a way to find a deep enjoyment in fulfilling the role that you establish in yourself. Write it down. Write down your core beliefs, and understand. You know, wait, did I take a position that doesn't reflect that of yourself? So I really appreciate it if you made it this far. Please subscribe to the channel, follow, join me again as we talk about crucial parts of our lives and our movement forward into the unknown, without a desire for significance necessarily, but a desire of fulfillment. There's a big difference, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Marshall. The channel's Plausibly Anything, and like I said earlier, check out the Mentoring 365 as I show you guys my journey in talking about these topics. As I will, and you'll really understand that I've gone a long way. In this process. Thank you guys so much. Take care.